two giants of gospel music, two voices that have defined generations, Fred Hammond and Shirley Caesar. For decades, they've been celebrated as living legends, shaping worship, inspiring millions, and carrying the sound of gospel across the world. But now, these two icons have found themselves on opposite sides of a fiery debate that no one saw coming. What started as a conversation about the future of gospel quickly turned into a clash of vision, passion, and legacy. The exchange has left the gospel community divided, fans in shock, and critics asking hard questions. Is gospel music losing its roots, or is it evolving into something greater? With Fred Hammond standing firm on one side and Shirley Caesar unafraid to speak her truth on the other, this isn't just a debate, it's a moment that could reshape the entire direction of gospel music as we know it. Stay tuned, because what Fred Hammond and Shirley Caesar just revealed has the power to change how you see gospel music forever, and the part that's setting the internet on fire will leave you stunned. These aren't just artists, they are institutions. For decades, their voices have defined the very heartbeat of gospel, inspiring millions and shaping the soul of worship. But recently, the gospel world was shaken to its core when these two living legends went head-to-head in a heated debate about the future of the genre. What unfolded wasn't just a disagreement, it was a collision of visions, passion, and legacy. The fallout has been explosive. Fans are divided, social media is ablaze, and even fellow gospel artists are weighing in on the controversy. Some are calling it a much-needed wake-up call, while others see it as a dangerous split in the foundation of gospel itself. This isn't just about music, it's about the direction of an entire movement. And as the dust settles, one thing is clear, this debate isn't over, and the outcome could reshape the gospel industry forever. Shirley Caesar and Fred Hammond each stand for distinct gospel philosophies. A tension that has been building for years is revealed by their conversation, one with roots in history and the other embracing contemporary innovation. You'll see why this discussion is more than just a headline if you stay with us through the entire film. For gospel music, it marks a sea change and may potentially reshape the genre's future in the decades to come. You must first comprehend the legacy of these two heroes in order to fully understand why their latest debate rocked the gospel world. For more than 60 years, Shirley Caesar, often referred to as the first woman of gospel, has been a constant presence in gospel music. Shirley's voice and message have inspired generations since she began singing in church choirs and went on to become a multi-award-winning recording artist. She is renowned not only for her strong voice, but also for her steadfast dedication to ministry and the traditional foundations of the gospel. Gospel music is more than just entertainment to Shirley. For many believers, it is a lifeline, a means of worship, and a spiritual calling. Conversely, Fred Hammond embodies a more modern gospel movement. Fred contributed to the emergence of a contemporary sound that combines R&B, urban, contemporary, and traditional gospel elements with his distinctively smooth voice, bass lines, and creative production. His collaborations with ensembles such as solo projects and commissioned have continuously expanded the definition of gospel music, making it more accessible to younger listeners while maintaining the genre's spiritual foundation. Although Shirley and Fred are both well known throughout the world, they represent distinct gospel philosophies. Church heritage, hymns, and the moving impact of live choir arrangements are all major influences on Shirley's music. However, Fred's music frequently combines crossover appeal, urban sounds, and technology without sacrificing its religious message. Their most recent argument, which is a conflict between vision, philosophy, and interpretation of what gospel music should stand for in the contemporary times, is framed by this disparity. In interviews, sermons, and social media posts throughout the years, both musicians have shared their thoughts on the current status of gospel music. Shirley has frequently stressed adhering to the moral and spiritual principles of the gospel while warning against fads that put fashion before content. On the other hand, Fred has praised innovation, emphasizing the value of engaging younger audiences and extending the gospel's reach outside of conventional church settings. In gospel, the conflict between innovation and tradition has always existed. However, the conversation transcends academic boundaries when two well-known individuals, such as Shirley Caesar and Fred Hammond, openly express their divergent viewpoints. The stakes are really high, and it gets personal. Their views have an impact on fans, other musicians, and even the gospel music industry's commercial aspects, such as radio play, streaming services, awards, and festival lineups. The cliffhanger is right here. They discussed more than simply musical style in their most recent argument. It turned into a discussion about the gospel's basic essence and future. Their subsequent statements would cause social media uproar, split fan bases, and start conversations that are still going strong today. Earlier this year, a gospel music panel that received a lot of attention served as the actual catalyst for this contentious discussion. The purpose of the gathering was to explore the future of gospel while simultaneously celebrating its lasting legacy. But when Shirley Caesar and Fred Hammond took the stage together, it soon turned into a battlefield of ideas. Everything appeared friendly at first. Shirley Caesar began by paying tribute to the gospel pioneers, names such as Albertina Walker, James Cleveland, and Mahalia Jackson, reminding the audience of the basis for today's gospel. Gospel was never meant to fit in with the world, but rather to call the world out of darkness, she said with her customary authority. The audience cheered, especially the elderly supporters who found resonance in her remarks. For Shirley, gospel is more than just a musical style. This is a ministry that ought to be isolated from the general public. It was Fred Hammond's time next. Fred thanked the pioneers with his customary cool-headedness and consideration, but he also noted that circumstances have changed. He maintained that evolution is necessary to reach the next generation in the modern world. According to Fred, we run the risk of losing a whole generation to secular music if we don't change. The approach must be altered, but the message remains the same. Younger audience members and other modern performers applauded his remarks, but Shirley's fans on stage were visibly uncomfortable. When Shirley explicitly addressed Fred's remarks, the tension increased. God's word is the same yesterday, today, and forever. When you start combining it too much with the world, you risk diluting the anointing, she said, looking him in the eye. The gospel does not need to change. Fred didn't back down, though, because her voice carried the weight of 60 years of ministry. He responded sharply but respectfully, "Mother, surely, with all due respect, young people today don't listen to choirs the way they used to. If we package the message in a way that connects with them, whether that's through beats, bass, or collaborations, we're not diluting the word." Mother agreed. When the panel transitioned from a discussion to a real debate, Shirley emphasized that some contemporary gospel songs sound too much like R&B or hip-hop and run the risk of being confused for secular songs, which could lead to listeners being confused about what gospel is. We're delivering it in a language they understand. Fred, meantime, remained steadfast, pointing out that Jesus himself disseminated truth through parable stories that were well known to his audience, and asked, "Why can't we do the same with music?" The audience was split between nods of agreement and murmurs of disgust when Fred asked, and the argument spread outside the platform. In just a few hours, videos of their conversation went viral, illuminating social media sites like Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Fans fiercely defended their positions, with hashtags like #SarTeamFred and #TarTeamShirley trending. Some commended Shirley for preserving the integrity of the gospel, while others commended Fred for pushing the envelope to preserve it in a culture that was changing quickly. This is where things get even more intense, though, as insiders later disclosed that what was said on stage was only part of the story, and both artists reportedly shared stronger words behind the scenes, expressing frustrations that the cameras missed. The discussion was further amplified by the opinions of gospel radio hosts, YouTubers, and bloggers. The fallout from Fred Hammond and Shirley Caesar's debate was immediate and widespread, with fans all over the world taking to social media to express shock, excitement, and even outrage. Those private remarks, once leaked, only served to fuel the flames and made the gospel community wonder if this debate was about music or something much deeper. Some were quick to take sides. For days, followers of the hashtags Team Fred and Team Shirley dominated Twitter trends, fervently defending their favorite icon. Memes, video clips, and discussion threads proliferated on Instagram and TikTok, igniting debates among both gospel acolytes and casual music fans who had never before participated in gospel discussions. Many wrote that Fred Hammond's approach brought gospel to venues it had never reached before, clubs, festivals, and mainstream radio, without compromising its spiritual message. Younger fans embraced his efforts to modernize and innovate the genre, arguing that gospel needed to change to remain relevant as platforms like Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube became the main way that new generations consume music. Fred is saving gospel for the next generation, and we need someone to bridge tradition with today's sound," were among the comments that flooded the feeds. On the other hand, Shirley Caesar's longtime supporters defended her strong adherence to tradition, with older fans in particular viewing her position as a necessary safeguard against the delusion of gospel spiritual integrity. For example, one admirer tweeted, "Gospel is sacred, not just entertainment," while another said, "Mother Shirley is protecting the word." The industry responded with equal vigor, with gospel radio stations reporting increased listener engagement with phone lines and social media pages flooded with questions and opinions about the debate. Many praised her bravery for speaking out against what they saw as a creeping secularization of gospel music. In order to analyze the dispute and get opinions from local pastors, choir directors, and gospel singers, some DJs even planned special concerts. Church communities and gospel music forums passionately discussed whether modern influences improve or detract from worship experiences. The story was further magnified by media coverage, which framed the generational gap as part of a broader discussion about the genre's future. Some journalists speculated that the debate might impact future gospel award shows, collaborations, and even festival bookings, while others asked whether this conflict represented a conflict between the new and old leadership in gospel music circles, potentially changing the power dynamics in the industry. The intensity was further increased by the fact that the artists themselves continued to debate the issue in private after the event, which, according to insiders, had a sharper edge and showed frustration on both sides. Some speculated that Fred felt bound by tradition, while Shirley was concerned that contemporary trends might dilute the spiritual message she has devoted her life to preserving. Viral debates broke out on a number of platforms, with YouTube channels breaking down the exchange line by line and providing millions of viewers with commentary and analysis. Podcasts dedicated entire episodes to the debate, with hosts arguing over which side had a stronger case and what that meant for the future of gospel. Here's the shocking part. Despite the intense fan divisions and vehement opinions, many insiders agreed on one thing. Even secular music analysts commented, pointing out that this debate was an example of a larger struggle in music industries: how to balance tradition and innovation without alienating the core audience. This debate has been successful in reviving interest in gospel music, with younger listeners who might not have otherwise been interested in the genre now taking notice and streaming Shirley Caesar's timeless anthems as well as Fred Hammond's modern hits. Churches and gospel choirs say that the buzz surrounding this debate has contributed to an increase in attendance at worship services. Although the public's attention is at an all-time high, there is another level that most people are unaware of. Behind the headlines, some artists are concerned that the debate may cause long-term rifts in the gospel community, strain traditional and contemporary artist collaborations, and affect future award nominations or festival lineups. Time will tell. In order to fully comprehend the significance of the debate between Fred Hammond and Shirley Caesar, we must look beyond the brief disagreement and consider its implications for the gospel industry as a whole. This is not just a generational dispute, rather, it is a turning point for gospel music, compelling musicians, producers, and fans to consider the field's future. Fred Hammond's viewpoint reflects a growing trend in contemporary gospel: innovation, crossover appeal, and his strategy appeals to younger audiences who listen to music in a different way than previous generations. Streaming platforms, social media, and viral trends have changed the way gospel reaches listeners, and it is now more important than ever for musicians to produce music that is both culturally relevant and spiritually impactful. Shirley Caesar's position, on the other hand, emphasizes the significance of maintaining gospel's sacred roots. She reminds the community that gospel is not just entertainment, but also worship, ministry, and a reflection of centuries of spiritual tradition. Fred is a symbol of this new wave of gospel that can chart alongside secular hits while maintaining a clear message of faith. The debate thus reveals a tension that many in the industry have quietly acknowledged for years: balancing innovation with tradition. Shirley's approach appeals to older generations, church congregations, and listeners who view gospel as a spiritual lifeline, something that must remain distinct from mainstream pop culture. Her cautionary perspective highlights the risks of diluting gospel's message by blending it too heavily with secular trends. Gospel runs the risk of losing its cultural relevance if it becomes too traditional, but it also runs the risk of alienating its core audience if it becomes too modern. Fred and Shirley's exchange encapsulated this conundrum, igniting conversations that extend well beyond a single debate panel, with insiders claiming that the discussion has already impacted production choices, partnerships, and even festival lineups. While traditional artists and choirs, more in line with Shirley's philosophy, are focusing on live instrumentation, choir arrangements, and lyrical depth, younger gospel artists, motivated by Fred's vision, are experimenting with new sounds, incorporating hip-hop, R&B, and electronic elements into their music. For artists, this debate is not abstract. Fan reactions also show the stakes. Social media discussions reveal a generational divide. Younger listeners celebrate experimentation, while older audiences defend gospel's purity. This duality reflects the genre's changing identity and suggests a dynamic future where both approaches coexist if balanced carefully. The dramatic twist is that music producers are now paying close attention, attempting to figure out how to market gospel music in a way that appeals to both sides without alienating either, as it affects everything from album sales to radio play, streaming figures, and performance chances. Gospel music may become stronger, more diverse, and more influential than ever before as a result of this debate, according to some insiders. Imagine gospel music that remains spiritually grounded while simultaneously pushing creative boundaries, music that finds resonance in churches, online platforms, festivals, and beyond by making artists and audiences face these issues. This evolution may have been sparked by Fred and Shirley's conversation, but the debate also poses challenging questions. Will younger artists follow Fred's example and risk criticism from traditionalists? Or will the influence of legends like Shirley Caesar ensure that the spiritual core remains unshaken? The answers are complex, but one thing is certain: can gospel preserve its sacred identity while embracing contemporary sounds? Fred Hammond and Shirley Caesar have sparked a conversation that will influence the direction of gospel music for years to come at a critical juncture.